And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pojita kaitravottra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu Shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parer Ishvaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubis Takshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient within itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhur aho rasaka bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic knowledge. The mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable by all, for all. Although its nectarian fruit was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, verse number 36. This is another famous verse. Prabhupada quoted sometimes. Shinvanti gayanti grinanti abhikshanatsa smaranti nandanti tavehitam janaha taeva pasyanti achirena tavakam bhava pravaho paramam padam bhujam. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. In order to see Him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Shri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see Him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Sisupala were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see Him unless we have a necessary vision. The necessary vision is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, etc., by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing, etc., sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord eye to eye. The reason is that the first item, Shravana, is very important. If hearing is from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Generally, people hear from unauthorized persons. Such unauthorized persons may be very learned by academic qualifications, but because they do not follow the principles of devotional service, hearing from them becomes a sheer waste of time. Sometimes the texts are interpreted fashionably to suit their own purposes. Therefore, first, one should select a competent and bona fide speaker and then hear from him. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result, provided the hearing process is perfect. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from His dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with His dealings with the Asuras and others, and in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with His conjugal associates, the Gopis, as well as with His married wives at Dwarka, are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about His dealings with the Gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures, and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not, therefore, consider that his dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the Gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above-mentioned dealings of the Lord, He is the hero in all circumstances, and hearing about Him or about His devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, etc., are all made to revive our lost relation with Him. Hearing of all these scriptures is essential. Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. So there are many very important points in this purport. First of all, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, cannot be seen by a present conditional vision. In order to see Him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see Him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Sisupala were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, although the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. So, this necessary, well, first of all, what are the obstacles that stop materialists or inhibit materialists from seeing the Lord? Everyone in the material world is subject to 5 types of ignorance. And they are: one is forgetfulness of our real identity, that is thinking rather than I am this body, and that I am eternally, rather than I am an eternally conscious soul, trapped in a temporary body. So people identify with the body, and they forget their real identity as the eternal servant of Krishna. That's the first type of ignorance. And that first type of ignorance covers, I would say, almost 99% of people in this world. So that eliminates a lot of people right away. Then second type of ignorance is the sense of death and the fear of dying. So therefore, there are a lot of people that fear death, and therefore they do everything to prolong their life in the body by making adjustments to the body with plastic surgery, with replacing their sexual organs with monkey organs. There's an operation that they do in Switzerland. It's very famous, you know. And all kinds of crazy things. All kinds of crazy things. One of the best examples is Michael Jackson. He had so many plastic surgery operations, that finally his nose started just to disappear. Right? He had to operate so many operations. He tried to change his color from being African American to being white. So all those artificial alterations of his body led to serious complications. In fact, I know one person who he was a sannyasi, and he wanted to never have any wet dreams or any type of ejaculation. So he had some operation performed where he could not ever get an erection. And as a result of that, later on, he got prostate cancer and died. So every time we alter the body in an artificial way, there's always other complications. Like, for example, I know one lady, she was a devotee, and she had a lot of digestive problems. And finally the doctor said, we got to take out your intestines, because they got infected, you know, there was some cancer. So, I mean, there's 2 intestines. There's there's small intestine and large intestine. So I think they took out the large intestine. And therefore, she had to have a plastic bag all the time for stool and urine. Now, when you do that, first of all, your quality of life is ruined. Secondly, you don't last very long. You know, you're very uncomfortable all the time because you're having the sac and stool and urine goes, you don't digest properly. It's horrible. And why did she do that? Because she didn't take any advice. And she was afraid of dying. So, but her death came faster because she did that. She agreed to let the doctors take out her intestine. So you see, we can't play around with the body. We can't, you know, use modern technologies to alter the body, because you might resolve one problem, but then there's another problem that comes up because you altered it. It's like dentists also, you know, they always like to pull out all your teeth and give you dentures. That's a very bad thing to do. But because people want, you know, perfect teeth, well, the body's going to deteriorate. And if you keep, like for example, Frank Sinatra has the most expensive teeth in the world. In fact, if you take him out of his grave, and open up the casket, you'll see the teeth are perfect. Even though the rest of the body, you know how much that costs? It costs like sometimes $100,000 to replace all the teeth with implants and this thing and that thing. But that doesn't really solve the problem. Yeah, your smile is nice, but it causes other problems by putting all the metal things into the mouth. And previously they used to put mercury to fill cavities. It's extremely dangerous. Mercury is a poison. They call it mercury implants. So all this stuff is crazy. That's because people want to look really nice, and they do plastic surgery and this thing and that thing, and they replace their teeth with implants or dentures, and they think they can stop the aging process. You can't stop the aging process. It's going to happen. But you can take care of the equipment with maintenance, right? Best maintenance is prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna. And not overeating, not oversleeping, not undersleeping. Yeah, there has to be a structured life based on Krishna consciousness. Then you'll be healthy, and you won't have to replace your gonads or replace your teeth or replace your nose or whatever, and you'll have a good life. But you're not this body, so you're not going to be able to keep the body forever. So the sense of death and the fear of dying leads people to do all kinds of strange things. Then again, the third type of ignorance that makes us blind to seeing Krishna is anger after frustration. That's another one. Some people get so angry when they get frustrated, they kill their wife and kids, and then they kill themselves. Or they go bankrupt and they jump out of a window. Right? It happens a lot. Or they commit suicide because they are caught doing something and the shame is too much and they commit suicide. So there are many strange things that happen when people become angry after frustration, and because of that they can't get it out of their mind, and it inhibits their progressive development of Krishna consciousness because they're angry, right? And they can't forget it and they can't let go of it. And then there's the sense of false ownership. Now that, it means, you collect things and you think, this is mine, and this is mine, and I have this, and I got this, and this, and this, and that, and that. And one gets cluttered with material possessions and attachments. And it's impossible for them to let go of these things, right? Until they're dying, and it causes them great distress, the fact that they're losing everything that they were so attached to. But how can you be attached to things that never belonged to you in the first place? Everything belongs to Krishna. But they develop this false sense of ownership. And that's 4. And number 5 type of ignorance that keeps us blind is the material conception of life, thinking that the goal is sense gratification. And the material conception of life is very elaborate. For example, the first point of material conception is attachment to objects of sense gratification. And the second point is preoccupation by many material desires. And when one is frustrated in achieving these desires, they develop hatred and envy. This is part of the material conception of life. Number 3, one seeks happiness outside of himself by enticing victims for his sense gratification. He seeks the company of other persons suffering from the same illusions. He dislikes the feeling of loneliness and seclusion as long as he feels successful in materialistic society. Number 4, he has a tendency to overindulge in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Number 5, he loses control over the activities of the senses and the mind. Number 6, due to identifying oneself with the temporary body rather than the soul, the eternal soul within the body, he develops a false ego that he is the body and identifies himself with temporary designations such as family, race, ethnicity, nationalism, etc. Number 7, he tries to prolong his existence in the temporary body by material strategies of diet, bodybuilding, supplements, plastic surgery, and other medical procedures. Number 8, because of all his misconceptions, he develops the false ego and becomes falsely proud of his temporary material achievements. Number 9, he's never satisfied, and whenever he's frustrated in achieving his material goals, he becomes angry and resentful and always blames others for his failures. Number 10, when he cannot get as much sense gratification as he wants, he becomes angry and delusional in his behavior. Number 11, he over-endeavors to acquire material sense objects and always seeks to be praised for his material possessions and achievements. Number 12, he becomes completely entangled and attached excessively to material things, and in this total state of bewilderment loses all interest in spiritual knowledge and God-related pursuits. Number 13, his mind then is overwhelmed by material considerations, and he becomes continually anxious and fearful as he gets older, sick, and approaches death. So these are different aspects of the material conception of life. It's very elaborate. It's very complicated. It's very, entangling. And there are 3 stages of the material conception of life. The first is negligence of spiritual and life because of too much attachment to material pleasures. That's the first step of the material concept of life. The second step, fear of an eternal spiritual personal identity that gives rise to the mistaken concept that one may merge into the homogeneous oneness of the impersonal light called the Brahman effulgence. So that impersonalism is the second stage, more serious stage of the material conception of life. And number 3, the conception of void after death that comes from frustration in life, from which one develops disbelief in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. One may adopt different forms of intoxication, and any hallucinations one may experience are accepted as spiritual visions. So anyway, you can see how complicated it is. The Mayavad philosophy and the Buddhist philosophy are 2 advanced stages of the material conception of life. They're not spiritual. Okay, so this is why Ravana, who could see God, could not recognize him. This is why Hiranyakashipu, who could see God, could not recognize him. This is why Kamsa, who could see God, who was related to him, had a family relation, couldn't understand him. Jarasandha, who could see God, thought he could defeat him, although he was defeated 18 times by him, and still he didn't accept that he's God. And Sisupala, who was extremely opulent and extremely advanced in knowledge, but he hated Krishna. So they were all highly qualified personalities materially by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. This necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only. Only by devotional service. There's no other way. It's not by taking supplements. It's not by doing yoga. It's not by having a lot of sex. It's not by having a lot of money. None of those things. Or it's not by meditating in a cave. It's only by active devotional service, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. So if you hear about the Lord from the wrong sources, again, you won't understand anything. And there are many wrong sources of hearing about the Lord. There's so many books. I remember when I was living in France, I wanted to find out something about India, so I went to the Indian embassy, and they had a free library there. I walked in the library, there were thousands of books. It was books, Karma Mimamsa and Nyaya and Sankhya. The big books like this on each one of these topics, right? And I looked at a few of those books. I couldn't understand anything. It looked so complicated, right? And I just, after spending about 2-3 hours in the library looking at all these different books, I walked out and I said, big X on India. I don't want to go there. I don't want to read their philosophy. I have nothing to do with it. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. You can't understand anything. Right? I don't know if you've ever read any of those big books written by Mayavadis on, Sankhya, Nyaya, Karma Mimamsa, and so forth. And this, Gautama Muni, and this Muni, and that Muni. You don't understand anything. It's so complicated, right? It's only when I heard Bhagavad Gita by Srila Prabhupada, I said, now I have a renewed interest in India. This makes sense. That other stuff didn't make sense at all. So, the necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. So, we'll stop there today. We're going to go over this purport again tomorrow. It's a very complicated purport, full of transcendental nectar. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.